I, it's been kind of crazy 24 hours, honestly. Um, I, whoa, it's been wild, wild. I want to talk about something. I want to talk about something called electromagnetic fields because that's the day. That's the threat that we're dealing with still, and have been dealing with. It's called electromagnetic fields, and it's taken me a while to put all the pieces together. I started off with electrodermal electricity, and then I moved to something else. And it's a combination of a lot of different things, but electromagnetic fields. They're using electromagnetic fields to mess with me and mess with a lot of people. It's, it's a new form of terrorism because they have the ability to turn it on and off, and they're turning it on and off based on how they're trying to craft society, and the ways that they're trying to craft society are conflicting with independence, freedom, liberty, and civil rights. I don't, you know, I don't want to make this a serious stream. We're gonna have fun, but I just want to say something because it's affecting me personally, and it's affecting my family personally, both in life and death. And I want those who are watching over me to be aware of this and to start figuring out ways. And this is find ways to help. This is we need to find ways to start creating silver and copper and gold are the three metals. They're the three metals that can help dissipate the electromagnetic field. So it's silver, the copper, silver, and gold. Although gold is not, the copper and silver are the two. They're the two. Copper and silver are the two metals that can be used to kind of like Faraday cage the electromagnetic field. That I haven't bought anything with copper or silver line. Like I'm looking into purchasing something to see how it tests in regards to also if anybody out there maybe try magnesium and calcium if you're looking for a more vitamin route. Try magnesium and some calcium in your diet. And then maybe they have those bracelets and silver necklaces and stuff like that. Those are supposed to help. Use silver, pure silver, and copper things. If they have like clothing that has like copper compression stuff, I might try that and see if it helps. But based on the research that I've done today, silver, copper, magnesium, and calcium they seem to be important things. So sorry for the weird intro, but it's been a weird day, and I'm still here. I'm still here. You're still here. I'm still here, and we're both trying to make this experience and game at a game in the world better. So Welcome back. Good stuff. Alright, let's play some Assassin's Creed. Let's play some Assassin's Creed. We got viewpoints. Major viewpoint, right? Let's get this major viewpoint out of the way. This will start saves first. Major viewpoint.
Provider of beef, veal and live bullets of several varietals. The choice of all is earning restaurant.
Today's first viewpoint is electromagnetic fields. This is his first viewpoint. Are you ready? Looking cozy. Cozy. Frames here, although I don't know if it's the same graphics settings like we heard. That's good. Today's second viewpoint will be the elements. The elements. Silver, copper, gold, magnesium, calcium. Might be important. Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay. Now, viewpoints. Silver, copper, gold, magnesium, calcium. These are the things that can help save society. The cross is actually part of the problem. Because here's what I've discovered. Oh man, these are some heavy viewpoints. These next viewpoints of mine are gonna be pretty heavy. So, America's democracy. America's democracy has changed. People used to govern in America based on independence, liberty, and civil rights. Those used to be the values which our nation was governed by. They still are. But, oh, let's bring it back to the neck. You can feel it. That's an electromagnetic. Ugh, that's an electromagnetic field response. That's a univariable. Now, some people perceive this sensation as God, because it has the ability to control our nervous system, and that's what this EMF, the electromagnetic fields, and that's why it's such a threat to humans. If it's abused, it has the ability to affect our nervous systems. neurological, functions. So, what's interesting here, do you guys know back in the day, this is an example of bad EMF energy. So you know how back in the day there'd be all of a sudden people would start getting health problems or bad health and have weird health things come up. And then all of a sudden, like out of the blue comes this religious brigade, and they're like, come one, come all, ailments, come bring your ailments, we will heal you. And they get everybody to show up at this religious ceremony to heal people, right? And these people have all of a sudden have these weird ailments, and then these people come along and you're healed. Well, how did they do that? Electromagnetic field. So people have been conditioned and scammed by other people who've been zapping people with electromagnetic field electricity. And they cause problems with people. And then they come on with the whole religious circus. And then they're like, if you just let the good Lord in your soul, I heal you. And then it's like, oh, I'm healed. That's because they turn the electromagnetic field off. They change the electromagnetic field. And so then they scam these people. And they're healed again. And then it's like they give their thanks to whatever they're, think that they're being healed by. It's the same scam. It's the same scam. So this scam has been going on by the religious community for a long time. And what we're now finding out is they used this scam to infiltrate the United States government. They've been dictating policy and governance not based on liberty, independence, civil rights. They have not been basing it off of that. They've been governing based off of biblical ideology infused with electromagnetic fields that are changing the impulses of humans. So they were conditioning people from a young age to make their judgments based on that electromagnetic field sensation. So they condition people to start making their decisions not based off of their philosophical, logical thinking or the foundation of America, independence, liberty, and civil rights, the foundations of America and the governance in which it's supposed to be followed by. They started to get people to govern and make government decisions based on how the electromagnetic field was zapping them. And then their overlords, they would send them the signals and the connections, and then they do the politics. They would govern based off of this. So they'll govern based off of these sensations they get from the electromagnetic fields. And now what we're discovering is that a lot of people in politics have entered politics not for the reasons of independence, liberty, and civil rights, but they entered politics to gain a foothold of power that democracy entails those who wield it and govern it. It's here. They took power in an undemocratic fashion. And now they're trying to run society by violating people's civil liberties and civil rights to try to gain power in the government. And they use this age-old excuse, the mental health excuse, right? They put people in mental health places. They used to put people in mental health places to talk like this because it disrupted their status quo and their business model. They have a whole business model based around this. And that's why this is a real threat to democracy, because democracy is supposed to be functioning and governed by independence, liberty, and civil rights in America. It's not supposed to be governed by faith-based ideology that uses electromagnetic fields to coerce biological sensations or physiological sensations. But they've got population numbers, and that's what this is scary, is because These people started collecting population numbers to try to use the pure idea of population control to control the narrative. It's like anybody who disagrees with their God theory. I personally refer to religion as a faith-based experiment. Some people just refer to it as faith. I think it's just faith. It's a faith-based experiment. So when people start trying to govern based on their faith-based experiments and they ignore independence, liberty, and civil rights, you're doing it wrong, and you're subverting American democracy. So and then this goes all the way back here. Let's people sync this. This is everything. This is Christianity. Really screwed up democracy. Thank you. It's appreciated, assholes. And I know not all of you are responsible, but the reality is there's a lot of you in the Christian faith who are responsible and know exactly what this is, and you know how to stop these things, and you choose not to, because you're having a business model centered around it. And that's the thing. They turn Christianity into a business model. I mean, think about it. They get their faith-based tax credit just for having a belief, right? So they get a tax credit for having a belief in America. Then they can use that belief to create a business model in the religious community, right? And then that business model, and here's the fun part, is America, and let's go to these people, is democracy run by money? Or is democracy now run by independence, liberty, and civil rights values? Because it seems to me now all politicians that get elected on today are doing it based off of, having money. It seems like politics is being run with money, and who's controlling the money? And here's the really scary thing. The in God we trust statement. The in God we trust on American currency is the biggest scam, the biggest coup d'etat attempt by the religious community. It was on the heels of World War II. When the United States and the Allies won World War II, and they discovered technology such as and this is the thing, when they went to concentration camps and saw what was happening, they discovered technology that was related to electromagnetic fields. So since the end of World War II, on the heels of our American victory, Allied and American victory. And then they started using this electromagnetic fields to influence society, but because it was on the heels of World War II, not a big deal. Everybody's happy, everybody's cool. We're all celebrating, people who made it through the war. So this goes on, and it starts to influence society. And then you get to Richard Nixon. And Nixon, who's a crook, changes American policy to remove U.S. fiat currency from the gold standard, which then in turn creates a weird inflation scenario and then the ability for the stock market to be manipulated more easily and the dollar to be manipulated more easily. So they made an attempt at currency play, and then they turned the stock market into their little power hungry game. And then for decades, they implemented all kinds of different methods to control power. And you want to know the reason why things like gold and silver will still be valuable. The reason things like gold and silver will still be valuable is because of their electromagnetic field properties. And this is why you don't have to worry about fiat currency. Well, at least as an American, I don't have to worry about fiat currency disappearing. Because if fiat currency disappears, what do you think they're going to go to? They're going to go to gold, and they're going to go to silver. Gold and silver are both majority, heavily, and overwhelmingly owned here in the United States. You got JP Morgan Chase, with the largest stockpile of silver, and you've got the United States, Fort Knox, that holds the largest, or the United States government holds the largest amount of gold. So, then become this battle for control over value and currency. You have the religious media that uses tender, and then somehow along the way they got In God We Trust in there, which is, there's something in America called separation of church and state. And I don't know what violates separation of church and state more than putting a monotheistic bias preference on legal tender compared to other, faith-based experiments. So somehow they finagled to get the word God on U.S. currency, which had separation of church and state. That's when you know the scam happened, and I'm surprised my government allowed it to happen. That just tells you how much they were using electromagnetic fields to manipulate people. So I think in the 2000s or the 90s, somebody challenged this, and they were able to get the phrase "In God We Trust" removed as a religious statement and legally referred to as a cultural reference. So "In God We Trust" on U.S. currency is not a religious reference for the purposes of legality. Now, I don't know how this, whoever, I forget who the person was, but I don't know how they were able to not see this. But even if it is a cultural reference, it's still a cultural reference that places a preferential bias towards one particular faith-based experiment on legal tender. It's like free marketing on legal tender. It's still a violation of church and state. So I don't know how they were able to just get away with it by calling it cultural reference. That's a scam. It's not, even if it's a cultural reference, it still places a marketing bias, preferential preference by putting that phrase on legal American tender, which values separation of church and state. So the real solution is to basically remove "In God We Trust" from currency, reprint currency, and then just remove the "In God We Trust," and to make that non-legal tender. To any U.S. tender that has "In God We Trust" on it, replace it with legal tender that doesn't have the phrase. That's the solution. That costs a lot of money. You got to change out all the footnotes. And I think they should also go back to the gold standard, because it's never going to lose value because of and this is why it's never going to lose value, because of its properties in dealing with the electromagnetic field, which is today's new threat. Today's new threat is electromagnetic fields, and today's new challenge is building things, to help defend us from it. It's because everybody says, "Oh, if you just believe in this, it'll just get better." It's the same scam that I was talking about before. They make a problem, and then the circus comes to town, and all of a sudden they heal you. It's a scam. It's a scam. So they're doing the same concept. So you really, there's a big problem here in America with the religious community interfering with, the true intentions of American democracy, and that's independence, liberty, and civil rights, especially in today's world. So the religious community, on the heels of World War II, changed the financial currency, changed, the standard of value, and then changed how people, and then they used electromagnetic fields not to help better people, but to scam and bruise people into trying to, coup d'etat an American government system, and to emotionally exacerbate the political process. And then look at this. We got, all right, next viewpoint.
Let the firm of Blake and Heath pursue your legal satisfaction. Mother Barnabas Preserve. Delectable jams and jelly. Fresh from the farm to your table.
I forgot where I left off, by the way. I finished this viewpoint. We can do that. So truly a threat to democracy. Is that already synced? So basically, you had society being conditioned to think that this electromagnetic field experience was a religious experience. Because people didn't know how to rationalize it. And now they have things called electromagnetic field readers. So you can actually test it, and it's very, and this is, this goes back to me knowing that they could do things by knowing the sensation, knowing when I'm going to click the mouse. They know I'm going to click the mouse based on reading electromagnetic fields, and they're using this data. In my case, they were using it to mess with the video. Like this is how they cheat in the video games too. They use electromagnetic fields to dictate and script the results as they're happening. They can sense, they know when your body's going to move. It starts in your brain. And most people don't realize it because the neurological synaptic process happens so quickly that you don't really realize it. But the information, when you move a body part, it starts in your brain. The signal starts in your brain, and it gets sent down. It's sent down to your nerve, down, and then like for your hand, it goes into here, and then into your fingertips. So I'm moving my finger, right? With this process, the signal is starting here, and it's being transported down my arm into my finger, and the nerve endings and synapses. It's sending the impulse, the electrical signal. So that means that very fine window, the very, very, very fine window where the signal starts in the brain and it moves to the tip of the finger, that's the part they're manipulating. That small window where the electrical energy goes from the brain to the tip of the finger. They're using electromagnetic, they're doing something that's taking that very fine milliseconds, the milliseconds that take from your brain signal to your fingertip, and they're using that to harass people. It's happening, and here's this is viewpoint. What about this Sputnik scare? Here's another thing. And you really want to get weird about this balloon thing. You really want to get crazy with it. It's so many stories put together. It's the movie The Martian, right? Remember in the movie The Martian when the Chinese had technology to help save the Martian? And they wanted to use it with US NASA so what if NASA and the Chinese scientists, I forget what their space program's called. I think it's like CSA or something like that. So the Chinese space program and the American space program, just like in the movie The Martian, this balloon, which almost feels like, it's almost reminiscent of Sputnik, right? It's like Sputnik. So this balloon is kind of like The Martian. It's like a device, but it's also not, but that's one of the storylines. Another storyline, Little Nemo. I watched Little Nemo recently. Everybody seen Little Nemo? Dirigible. So there's the second perspective. The third perspective is the action. It's like a Sputnik scare, right? And they're also making a point, like, they mentioned the satellites can do the same thing that this balloon is doing. So it's like they're trying to say, does it make a difference when you can see the stuff versus when it's in space? The same thing happens in space, but you don't see the satellites in space, but you see the balloon and it freaks you out, right? So it's so many different narrative storylines layered all in one. Now, if you want my opinion, I think you should try and capture it. I mean, if we're not coordinating in a positive way in relationship with the Chinese space administration, and this is where I bring the Martian concept in because that's a better way to view this. I'd like to think they're working together to solve this electromagnetic field crisis. I'd like to think that whatever is attached to that balloon is a device measuring electromagnetic fields. That's why I'd like to think that China is helping the United States and not trying to create war. But if the media and the government start, announcing things like, oh, we're working with Chinese scientists to figure out why everybody's crazy, Well, then the Christian community that spent so much time crafting together their EMF bullshit story and gaining power and democracy in America based off of torturing people. That's gonna go. That's why it's like Cold War era, like scare, because they're taking in, now you got all the Americans who know full well that they're responsible for this, and now they're understanding that they're Americans who are actually actively working to try and figure it out and prove the science. And it's been proven. So I'd like to think that this is a research experiment conducted in coordination as countries rather than as enemies to prove that this electromagnetic field affects us. You boys, if they can capture the balloon, that'd be great. But then, and that's another thing. They set up the whole, mathematical, right? Like it's 60,000 feet in the air. So if you shoot it, it falls. And you can't capture it. The technology breaks, right? The device breaks. It's so high though, it's above planes, so you can't send helicopters to get it. Planes are so fast that they'll fly right by it. So how do you capture it? You can't just shoot it down. You capture it if you shoot it. If it falls, is there like a net? Like how could you capture it? That's only assuming that they're not in coordination with each other. If our countries are coordinating, that's probably why they're not saying anything. They don't want to scare the religious community. Then they're like, oh, they're traitors, people who are working with the enemy. You know what, China actually, I think they're chill. They're big on the education game, and they want to help fix certain elements of China. Certainly have different government, ideological perspectives, but there are some things that are similar. So, few points. So, it's a weird situation where depending on what generation, what generation you're from, and what your likes and interests are, and what your views are, this whole balloon thing, you have multiple different perspectives. I understand I'm a non-religious Jewish person, an American non-religious Jewish person, trying to fight for my independence, liberty, and civil rights in a day in the year 2023, where I survived homelessness as a non-religious, so I'm a Jewish non-religious survivor of homelessness. Basically, I'm somebody fighting for independence and freedom in a system that's populated, not necessarily governed, and that's why they can't get to me, because they're trying to govern based on their ideological faith-based thinkings, which I don't agree with, and I don't live by. So they've been trying to get me to live based on their standards, so they can say that I belong to their cause, but I don't belong to their cause, and I don't live their standards, and I'm not religious. So it's been a difficult journey for me, and then you gotta add in the content creator aspect, and you gotta add in the fact that content creators who are trying to make something of themselves, you gotta add the fact that they zap them with electromagnetic fields. There's this whole Hollywood has a history of using electromagnetic fields, but they have the experience. They didn't. I don't think they did what the internet's doing. I think they had a different process and a different method, and they got to a better solution. And that's what's scary, is that Hollywood already went through the process of figuring out the appropriate etiquette for the electromagnetic fields. and the religious community have a completely different version of it. So it's a little disconcerting for me as an American, non-religious Jewish person. And some of you are like, how can you be Jewish and non-religious? I grew up, I went to temple, got my bar mitzvah, which is a Jewish rite of passage of a boy becoming a man. I read the Torah, I've been to Israel. I support my Jewish community. I love my Jewish community. I am such a proud Jewish person. But I also recognize that some of the more, godly elements, relative to today's year 2023, there's a lot of things that don't make sense. So as much I have all the respect in the world for my Jewish community and the background and even the religious aspect of it, but I don't want to represent the religious side of things. And I'm not trying to attack the religious side per se. It's just that based on what I've seen on how religion, and I know in this particular last circumstance, it's based on the population of the Christian community, not the ideology, it's just been an assault on democracy. And I view the elements and foundations of democracy in America to be a little more important than some certain, religious perspectives. And just because I don't want in God we trust removed from currency, it doesn't mean I don't hate my monotheistic faith, Judaism, which is the first monotheistic faith, Christianity, and that's why it's Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Those are the three monotheistic faiths that believe in one God. The main three monotheistic faiths that believe in one God. And that's why it's biased, because there's so many other faiths in the world. That's why it needs to be removed from currency, because when they place the words in God we trust, they're trying to place a marketing preference, a bias. It's like free marketing on U.S. legal currency. It doesn't make sense. It's like free marketing. And that's why these people use money as a means to get themselves elected. The Christian community sees the words in God we trust on currency like, wow, we did it. We coup d'etat the United States to the point that our religious values overwhelmed the very basic foundations. So that's why that's why they use money to win politics, because in their mind, there's so many faith-based population numbers that it's just a battle of using God's currency. That's why they think it's their currency, because they were able to get the words in God we trust on. I mean, legally speaking, it has nothing to do with religion. It took a while to get that, I saw maybe that's the sacrifice that guy made. Maybe he knew that they were only going to budge a little, right? And they needed somebody else to push the rest through. So maybe he at least moved the goalpost from religious statement to a cultural reference. So that way the next person can come along and go from, okay, now that it's a cultural reference, you're still placing a bias and a preference towards one monotheistic faith-based experiment compared to all the faiths in the entire existence of humanity. Now if the Christian population put things like independence, liberty, and civil rights at their forefront, then they wouldn't have tortured people probably. But as we see, religious, if when people think this electromagnetic field is God, then they don't care, then it's like they sacrifice everything sometimes. And that's why people do crazy things, is because they think that this God thing is more important than this governance thing. I think at this point, in the 21st century that we live in, I think the governance is more important than the faith-based governance. I think, our governance towards independence, or at least in America, speaking specifically America, our governance towards independence, liberty, and civil rights. If you're not on that path and you're in America and you're in politics, you might be subverting the democratic process. So, that's why this is an interesting time in America, and that's why this Sputnik thing's happening. It's like the Cold War. It's like we're fighting for democracy again through these mental and psychological things that are going on. So that's why it's like context and perspective, right? So it's unnerving at times. And then you have the electromagnetic field and the people manipulating that, and then that's how they brainwash people. They get people all, into this mind space. And then they try to find, then they use the religious world, or, they make them, if you just become religious, all this pain will go away, you'll feel better. That's so they can fulfill their little political coup d'etat thing. I'm sorry, but I don't want a religious coup d'etat in the United States. I want my system of governance to represent independence, liberty, and civil rights. That's the America I know. So you can understand how this has been a challenging time for me. And I truly have been attacked by people who are offended by my opinions and my views. And I know the people who spent the last 50, 60, 70 years crafting together some sort of philosophical agenda war on American democracy. So can you understand why they're riling me up and making me piss off? That's why. And I'm trying to do, that's why I contact my government, because those people who've probably seen this before, those people who can know how to deal with it. That's why I don't fall back on religion, because religious people are just gonna cover it up to keep their religious faith experiment. They'll just blame it on God and morals and ethics and right or wrong decisions because they're invested in it. Literally, it's a business model. That's why I believe in my governments, because they're the ones who are supposed to be governing based off of those values. And so you can understand why in America there's this concern for me and others about this threat to democracy. I love my country. I don't want to see a coup d'etat, right? An ideology that it's just. One. So now that we've got our viewpoints in for today, let's do a main mission, and I'm gonna call it. I feel it on the back of my right in the back here. That's where I feel it right now, and that is an electromagnetic field, and people are able to send out signals, and that's why people, when people are playing games and they feel different ways when they're playing the games, it's because an electromagnetic field, some signal is being sent out. Some people feel it, and some people don't, but the people who do feel it, it's not God. I promise you this, it is not God. It is a very sophisticated electromagnetic field. And I know the religious community wants to kill me for saying these things, but welcome to America. Welcome to America, where things like free speech matter, independence, liberty, civil rights. Do you get it? You see, that's why I can say these things. I shouldn't have to be afraid to say things that can help save America, because I'm an American in America. I know my rights. I know. So I don't. It's up theirs, Not all the religious community, and I know there's a lot of people within the religious community who also relate and understand and agree. But then there's the power structure part of the religious world. The same people who covered up the priest pedophile stuff. They have a long history of covering up and scamming. It's a pattern in a history of the religious community covering up and scamming with the electromagnetic fields. And the pedophile thing, they only knew that because they got the evidence. They were able to get the evidence. What about the stuff that they cover up that nobody gets the evidence to, or it's harder to get the evidence to? And so they're in for the video game world. This is where, population numbers, right? Bullying people based on population numbers. So it's like they're using their population numbers to bully. And this is where it sucks for people who are Jewish, right? Because after the Holocaust, 6 million Jews died. Could you imagine what 6 million more Jews in the world would look like 75 years later? That's hundreds of millions, if not a billion. How many more millions of Jewish community members would be alive today? And the population numbers that Jewish people would have. So that's why it's disconcerting. That's why I feel like they're attacking me for being Jewish, not necessarily religious Jewish, but just Jewish. That's why it's disconcerting, you know, because they took away the ability for Jew, you know, and that's why the population numbers thing is such fucked, especially when they're not basing it off of the right reasons, because Jewish people would have a bigger population if we were in Holocausts. You know what I mean? I'd have a larger community of people to be a part of. I wouldn't have to feel so, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. So, you can understand how, for me, this whole experience has been a real threat to democracy and freedom. And then you got the people who manifest the contents. You got these troll farm people who view people's content and then they manifest it, both in good and bad. And that's where it bothers me too, because I was trying to make content in positive ways, and then people were manifesting the content in negative ways, and I didn't like that. That's when I started trying to craft together things to try to prevent it. But what I learned is that these people really are dedicated to trying to find the worst manifestations out of even the best things, and those people are a little fucked. Your wiring's a little off. Your electromagnetic fields are a little wooky, a little wonky. And that's what's, why are we living in, I thought in the year 2023, human beings would want to just live more free. I didn't think they would want to live in more bondage. And that's what this feels. It feels like electromagnetic field bondage, right? Placing people in a bondage situation based on an electromagnetic field. Like unconsensual bondage. SOS Os Lasagna, in regards to the electromagnetic field, this is my official response to the electromagnetic field when it bothers me. Os Lasagna SOS. That's my official response. So you can understand how I feel when they violate some of my safe words, which they very well know are. They know. By the way, Os Lasagna used to be goodbye greeting. It's now a safe word. FYI, for those of you who haven't been keeping up with my FetLife page. So SOS and Os Lasagna are both my official safe words. Just so everybody realizes this. It really is like a fight for my life. And they're using population numbers to try to overwhelm me in America. And they've killed people to try to ruin my story. They've killed people for the wrong reasons, I think. But I'm not giving up, and I'm not going to let them deter me, because that's how you lose. Not like the lose kind of way. That's exactly how you lose. In my opinion, lose, all the weird, the verbal games that people have on the lose thing. Lose, they do that weird thing. You can separate the difference. That's why it doesn't bother me, because you can separate those things. Some people have a word game, some weird word game based on it, but you can still separate, because that's why it doesn't bother me. I think, some of you should be able to understand how this has a serious effect on me on a lot of different levels, both as a Jewish person, as an American, as somebody who's trying to find independence, liberty, and civil rights, and who values and cherishes them. More people need to think like this. Be honest.
Johnson's told me what you intend. As it happens, the man who held me is the same one that you seek. His name is Silas Thatcher.
That fancy lad is our slaver.
Don't let his velvet tongue deceive you. A crueler and more vicious creature I've never known.
What can you tell me of this operation?
He hosts at least 100 men, more than half of whom are redcoats.
All this for some slaves?
Hardly. The man's a commander in the King's troop, in charge of the Southgate Fort.
We need to find a way inside. Let me think on it. In the meantime, I'll attend to our final recruit.
John Pitcairn's our man. I'll take you to him.
Alright. Well, this has been a Viewpoint stream. For the most part.
State your business.
New recruit.
More kindling for the pyre, eh? Well, go on then.
How'd you manage that?
Did you forget, sir? My commission is with General Braddock. When I'm not attending to you, of course.
You know, even if something were to happen to me, if I have a lot of people who are protecting me and are invested in my long life.
Your acts are treacherous.
But if
Give me one good reason. I
I
shouldn't kill
want the
you right
information
now.
out there. I want to know why. I want people
Were
to
you
know why.
planning to announce yourself? Or did you hope my men
Sir,
wouldn't notice your
If you'll
arrival?
allow me to explain.
By all means. I should like very much to hear this.
I have not deserted, sir. I am here under Commander Amherst's orders.
Show me a letter bearing his seal, and you might be spared the gallows.
I have no such thing. The nature of my work, sir.
It's the sort of thing best not put to paper.
Hatham.
General Braddock.
I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. Wolves often travel in packs.
Master Pitcairn won't be here for but a few weeks. I shall return him to his proper post once our work is finished.
The devil's work, no doubt. It's bad enough my superiors have insisted I grant you use of Charles. But they've said nothing about this traitor. You'll not have him.
Edward, listen to reason.
We're done here. See these gentlemen out.
Oh, that didn't go as I expected.
And to think I used to call him brother.
What now? They'll chase us off if we try and return.
We're done with this camp.
Something weird.
And as luck would have it, so are they.
Smells something
Come along.
weird.
What are you planning?
To steal Master Pitcairn.
What?
You'll see. Now, when I give the signal, you're to distract Braddock's patrol and lure them into a dead end.
It's like old people smell. Yeah, it's like the smell of like old person.
Where shall we head next?
Perhaps down Marlborough.
No. Its residents are too content. Their homes are nice, their days untroubled.
What of Lynn or ships free?
Yes. Those fresh arrived are often soon in dire straits. They're more likely to seize upon an opportunity to fatten their purses and feed their young.
Whoa. And then my palm, I'm getting a little bit of sweaty palm sensation. So this is what I'm talking. These are electromagnetic stuff. So I'm getting a sweaty palm sensation now. And I can feel, you know, like that smell, and now it's followed by sweaty palms. You know, people were creating independence in America.
Now!
When the American independence was occurring, there were people like me that both survived and died to make America possible. And I hope people don't forget that. If there's a democracy here again, I hope people continue to die.
You thieves and scoundrels, one and
To
all!
make America's independence.
Fie on you and your false
Liberty
war!
and civil rights possible again. That's why it's scary, right?
After him!
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm making my life, you know, I'm making this whole thing matter in some way. Although I didn't think we had to. I didn't think we had to screw society up along the way. You know. I thought we were at a point in society's progress where we had to do things over there.
Unhand him, Edward.
Here we are. Here we are.
You again.
Let us go. And John Pitcairn with us.
Definitely a rise in electromagnetic field sensation, so that must be something.
I will not have my authority challenged.
Nor I.
Put them all in chains.
Defense, right? So the electromagnetic field acting as a self-defense to whatever the gas is. So you gotta get 3 kills. There. You know, that's why I feel like Ubisoft is cool with me, because Ubisoft is a French company, and French liberty was one of the things that helped create America as well. Statue of Liberty.
I stay my hand today because you were once my
France,
brother
United States,
and a better man than
should be
this.
really good friends.
Or should our paths ever cross
So,
again?
You know, and their
All
storyline
debts
themes,
will be
so that's
forgotten.
why I said I don't mind. That's why I like Ubisoft. Me, I have a good
You're free now, John.
relationship, because I'm not trying to. I don't
Traitor!
give a shit about
Go on then!
Christian, Eagle,
Join them on their
as
fool's
much as
errand.
other people like.
And when
That's
you
why
find
it doesn't
yourself
bother me.
lying
I
broken
assume you've good
and
reason
dying
for causing all this
at the bottom of
madness.
some dark
What is it you require of me?
I'll explain everything on the way.
My horse. How long has it been now? Let's see. An hour, okay. I'm feeling a little, you know, they got some gas smell going, and now they got this electrodermal. It's like, it's just bouncing back and forth. We got our hour in, so I think I'm gonna call it here. We'll see. It's a nice little spot. Little IBI vibe here. IBI vibes. IBI vibes. That's not IBI vibes. I'm in it to win, man. And I'm not gonna let their threat of life and death push me off the course that I'm trying to correct in America. So, have a good one, everyone. Be safe. Try and find the correct things that can help create a defense barrier against these electromagnetic fields if you're affected by them in negative ways or harmful ways. Be awesome. See you next time, Monday, Assassin's Creed. We'll do some stuff this weekend streaming.